A friend of my mom's owns some rental properties here in Kansas City, and he had this 600 plus pound walnut stump sitting under the back stairs of one of his apartment buildings, and he just wanted it to go away. We had to quarter it just to get it out of the spot where it was at and get it loaded up and hauled home. And we've already broken down one of those quarters into blanks. After seeing all the blanks that we got out of just 1/4 of this, I thought it would be good to show the whole process and the strategy of getting the most and best good blanks out of a chunk of wood like this. First, let's examine the condition that this is in and just the quality of the wood. This particular walnut tree does not split very easy, and because the splits are very jagged and there's a lot of cross fibers, there's going to be a lot of waste if I try to break this whole thing down by splitting. Very often, and not just in walnut, other species as well, but this walnut is no exception, the splits are especially interlocked on the radial plane of the growth rings. Because of that, I'm going to use a chainsaw and bandsaw to do most of this breakdown rather than splitting, otherwise I would just have a ton of waste. And where I do elect to use any splitting for this breakdown, I'm going to try to do that on the tangent to the growth rings, not the radius. Before I start cutting it up, let's look at a few more factors that are going to determine how I break it down. One is the condition of the sapwood, which has got some pretty major drying cracks, and also it's got mushrooms growing out of it. That indicates this log has been sitting with the bark off for, I'm going to say, a couple years at least. Also, the two ends, the side that was facing up is getting pretty full of drying cracks. They're going to be a few inches deep. And the side that was on the earth is starting to rot from being exposed to the earth moisture for that period of time. Conveniently, the amount of material I'm going to lose on the ends is going to get me to a length that's about what I can get through with one clear pass with my chainsaw bar. To do small freehand milling like this, it's much more efficient both in terms of stress and strain of the work doing it, but also getting a clean, clear pass and not having a bunch of jagged, undulating saw cuts. Now the chainsaw can make a clear pass. It can be helpful to mark out the lines you want to saw so that your slabs are a little more consistent. I'm going with the thickness of about 4 inches because that fits through my bandsaw pretty well, but I want my final dimension to be 2 inches, and I can just resaw the 4 inches down to 2 inches with the bandsaw. And the chainsaw doesn't have to be very accurate anyway, again, because I'll be truing everything up with the bandsaw. And I generally do as little work with the chainsaw as possible because it's more effortful but also more wasteful. These are the slabs from just 1/4 of the log. And I'm going to save these ribbon-like shavings for log hacks. On to the next log quarter. I've done this enough where I don't really need to draw the guidelines, so I'm just eyeballing it. And here's the third and final log quarter. Since a lot of these edges are very jagged, I do like to trim a flat that I can draw guidelines on for the bandsaw. I take my time and carefully strategize the cuts I'm going to make. I want to make a bunch of essentially 8/4 stock out of this, so I'm using a 2-inch wide straight edge, and I'm watching out for any flaws that might need to be trimmed out, like cracks, bug tracks, or inclusions. And I leave 1/8 of an inch or so for the saw kerf. And I like to lay out my cut marks on several pieces at a time, just so I'm not constantly flipping the saw on and off. If you have one of these old Craftsman bandsaws, don't expect it to do this. I've upgraded this one with a much more powerful motor. Not much to explain here, I'm just cutting along the lines. It is nice to see that premium material coming off the saw though, isn't it? With the blanks all cut out, I also need to trim the ends clean and square and check for hidden cracks. So that's why I'm doing that little test flex, is to see if those pieces I cut off break too easily. And I only trim a handful of these at a time because they need to be waxed almost immediately. In hot, dry weather, I've seen end grain cracks open up within just a few minutes of a fresh cut being made. We ran out of light yesterday, so it's day 2 of finishing up breaking this stuff down. We got to the point where we have all the dimensional stock sawn off and waxed, and it's good. But the sapwood here has these big cracks that I have to split them, go ahead and just follow the existing cracks and then see what's left, and there's probably some good spoon stock working around those cracks, but that involves splitting first and then some more subsequent bandsawing. Let's also appreciate how quickly end grain drying cracks happen. So yesterday when I chainsawed the ends, I got down below any existing drying cracks, and we look how badly cracked these are just from sitting overnight in the wind here. The large cracks in the sapwood are all radial, so I'm going to focus on breaking down these pieces along those cracks first. The interlocked radial grain really made this part a chore. Some of these radial splits really required some determination. See all these big cross fibers, and once again that's why I'm trying not to split very much of this. It just rips itself apart. Now contrast that with how clean and easy the wood splits on the tangent here. The entire outer 1.5 inches or so of this log is waste because of the depth of those drying cracks. Back to the bandsaw to clean those up. Quick viewer advisory here. Working irregular stock like this on the bandsaw can be dangerous if you don't know exactly what you're doing. I don't find it worthwhile to draw guidelines for most of this part. All I'm doing is trimming off all the rough and splintery and degraded parts and trying to get down to an approximately rectangular cross section. Of course, these all have to be trimmed and waxed as well. For anyone who's curious, that's the waste offcuts from this log. Most of that will end up feeding my mom's wood stove. Okay, we have the entire log broken down, so let's check out the yield. This stuff is basically a heavy 8/4, and the current retail price for rough sawn 8/4 walnut is about $15 per board foot. This is 32 to 35 board feet, so we're looking at right around $500 worth just for this material right here, retail value, in the condition it's in. That doesn't even include the 50 or so utensil blanks. And this will be thousands of dollars worth of finished product, but that'll be years before this is all dry and made and sold. The reason we went with mostly this size blanks is because this is a good size that still has potential to be broken down later. It's small enough, the dimensions are small enough that it probably won't crack as it dries. If you try to leave slabs too thick, you dramatically increase your chances that it's going to spontaneously split, even if you protect the end grain like we have with wax on everything. I did rip just one down into basically rolling pin blanks, but that can be done at any point. That can wait until they're totally dry, or I could do more of them right now. They will dry faster and be able to be turned and sold sooner if I do that, so I may do a few more of these before putting them up to dry. We can also rip them down just once this way and then once this way and get 4 spoon blanks out of each one of these. It doesn't always pan out when somebody offers a free log for the hauling, but it's always worth going to check because you do hit pay dirt sometimes. Thanks for watching, and let us know if there are any topics you want to see us talk about.